Well, now that I have figured it out, I know I'm a little late to the party. I'd like to talk to you about what we are all facing. So just to give you a little bit of information about me, I ran for Congress in 2020 as a candidate that had never held any political elected position in my life. I'd never served in the state house, state senate. I had never been to a GOP meeting before until I walked into one and declared myself a candidate for Congress. And I know you're probably glad I'd never been to a GOP meeting. So that tells you I was a true outsider, but I was also a believer in the words that Donald Trump had sold to America. And I believed in his words and his vision for Make America Great Again because we were all victims of the failures of the two-party system. You see, it's the failures of the Democrat and the Republican parties that left many Americans like myself vulnerable and so eager for the promises of Donald Trump and MAGA. And I was angered at the fact that so many people that I knew from my generation, I'm 51 years old, so I'm Gen X, so many people I knew from my generation had been sent constantly over to the Middle East. My father was a combat veteran from Vietnam, and I had many uncles and cousins that served in the military, but they never once fought a war that defended our homeland. None of them. And we all paid for it. So I ran for Congress believing in this concept of Make America Great Again, and to me that meant our businesses, to me that meant how our tax dollars are spent, and to me that meant for our own families and our future and for our country. I spent millions of dollars of my own campaign dollars traveling the country campaigning for Donald Trump. And so when you talk about someone that fought on the front lines of MAGA, I wasn't just a fighter, I was a general. I spoke all over the country for President Trump. I stood on rally stage after rally stage. As a matter of fact, I spoke at Lindsey Graham's home county. I spoke just before Lindsey Graham, and then Lindsey Graham came out on the stage after me and proceeded to get booed for 7 minutes straight. That was a great day. But now Donald Trump endorses Lindsey Graham. So after we got the president elected, and after what seemed to be setting our country on the right course, I thought for sure we were about to accomplish the great campaign promises that we made to the American people for years. The campaign promises of no more foreign wars and no more regime change. The campaign promises of bringing back American innovation and industry and small businesses. The campaign promises of dismantling the Board of Education. The campaign promises of finally holding the deep state accountable, locking up he's not a doctor, Anthony Fauci, right? Holding accountable the J6 committee that destroyed people's lives. Holding accountable the U.S. Attorney Matthew Graves that horrifically prosecuted people that walked in the Capitol on January 6th and destroyed their lives, is responsible for multiple suicides. Holding responsible for the bad guys that Donald Trump told us about constantly for years and years of Russiagate and all these other things, but the deep state, stopping FISA 702, spying on Americans, you know, the good stuff, right? All the things that Republicans had campaigned on. And then in 2025, the first quarter, we were actually doing it. We were passing some legislation that needed to be passed. There was much hope going forward. But then all of a sudden, the momentum slowed down. And as we approached going into the spring and the summer, we started getting some bills that we were being asked to vote on. One of them was called the Genius Act, and the other was the Clarity Act. And these were brought forth by the crypto industry. And I had a problem with the Genius Act because it had some vague language in there. And the Genius Act basically laid out a back door for a central bank digital currency. Well, that was something I could never vote for because we never want to give our government the power to create the ability to control how you spend or don't spend your money. And when I saw a Republican-sponsored bill that the president was publicly supporting on Truth Social and in his speeches that the Congress must pass it to regulate and set up the system for crypto, I was concerned. And so I said, when they asked me where I was, when they were whipping my vote, I said, I'm a no. I can't vote for that. Well, I found myself in the principal's office and sitting in a chair directly in front of the Resolute desk in the Oval Office. I'm walking in the White House among everyone that I knew and was friends with to go talk to, of course, my good friend Donald Trump, who had helped become president. And so I sit down in front of the desk thinking that this should go fine. And of course the president's going to understand where I'm coming from. And naturally he's going to agree with me that we can't have a central bank digital currency. And of course he's going to direct everyone in the room, especially the speaker, that you've got to change this bill, Mike Johnson. Boy, was I wrong. That meeting didn't go as well as I thought. As a matter of fact, it went pretty bad where I ended up being the one that got yelled at the whole time. I got lectured the most, and I walked out of there pretty surprised. However, when I walked out, I did something that's uncommon. And there's Dr. Paul in the room that had the courage and the integrity in his career to do the same. I walked out of the White House, and my vote was still no. And that's important. Now, you see, today, we're in a time where many Americans are realizing MAGA is dead. But MAGA died, actually, quite some time ago. It really did. MAGA was built by Donald Trump. Make America Great Again was such a dream for so many Americans, and it was sold for years and years, and an industry was created around it, an entire political industry and an economic. It's an entire economy. You see, MAGA went from being words and promises, but when it came time to put it into real action, the actions is what killed it. And do you want to know who took the actions to kill MAGA? It was the creator and the founder himself, Donald Trump. How did it happen? It started with the back door to a central bank digital currency. And then when we campaigned on lowering inflation and reducing gas prices and caring about domestic issues that matter to Americans, the White House front door became a revolving door to foreign leaders, not to Americans, and not to industry leaders and those involved in working on the domestic solutions that Americans needed. No, it became a place of foreign policy. The next thing that happened was bombing Iran. I openly and spoke publicly against it. And that's when strike two happened for me. The president was mad at me. How dare I criticize him? After all, he wants the Nobel Peace Prize, and he wants it by bombing Iran. How can I point out that hypocrisy, Marjorie? No, no, no. Don't criticize the president. Don't be a panikin. Trust Trump, right? Well, talking about another resolution that got blocked more than any other resolution I've ever seen, it was to release the Epstein files. So, wow. When we started talking about releasing the Epstein files, I'm like, this is a no-brainer. President Trump will just roll them out on a big cart himself. stacks and stacks and stacks of the Epstein files because obviously Bill Clinton is all in there and Hillary Clinton. That's what I had been told all along, right? Well, it was the most shocking thing when I sat in a conference meeting and I learned that the president didn't want to release the Epstein files. I was like, what? Yeah, come to find out, he was very much against it. So we kept on trying and kept on talking about it, and then the president told Mike Johnson, no, do not bring that resolution to the floor for a vote. He told the Rules Committee, and Johnson told the Rules Committee, no, you will not mark up any bill in the Rules Committee that will allow the Epstein files to be released. And the resistance built and built and built. He told Pam Bondi, don't release the Epstein files. He told everybody, don't release the Epstein files. So we persisted because that's what we promised. That's what we campaigned on, transparency and accountability, especially to pedophiles. How is that complicated? So it got to be such a gigantic amount of resistance coming from the president and the speaker and everyone, the DOJ. I said, fine, I'll do the unthinkable. I'll go over there and I'll sign my name on a discharge petition that all the Democrats are signing their name on. Talk about crossing the aisle, me, a general in the MAGA army, crossing over to sign my name with a bunch of Democrats. Yeah, I did. Because women were raped when they were 16 and 14 years old. And he was a convicted pedophile, and we knew there were many with him. So I signed my name on the discharge petition. Oh, did I get my name on the naughty list then? Let me tell you. That became a real issue at the White House. Well, I'll never forget it. I was in my office in the Rayburn building, and I got a phone call from the president. And he was at the White House, and he wanted to talk to me about the discharge petition that I'd signed my name on. And he said, Marjorie, you're going to have to take your name off that discharge petition. We can't let, this is a hoax. We can't carry this. This is a hoax. It's a Democrat hoax. And we've got to just put this away and stop doing this. And he said, my friends are going to get hurt. He said his friends would get hurt if we released the Epstein files. He said, Marjorie, these are good people. These are people you know at Mar-a-Lago. People in Palm Beach, they're going to get hurt by this. And I said, Mr. President, people have been hurt. These women have been hurt. I said, have you talked to them? I said, you should talk to them. You should have them in the Oval Office, Mr. President. You have everybody in the Oval Office. You have sports teams, you have world leaders, you have al-Qaeda terrorists that are now leading Syria. You have Mamdani. I mean, you have everybody in the Oval Office. Surely you can have these women who were raped as teenagers, talk to them. I talk to them all the time. As a matter of fact, many of them voted for you. That's what I told them. They voted for you. Epstein victims voted for Donald Trump. And he wouldn't have anything to do with them. And he told me his friends would get hurt. And I said, not taking my name off the discharge petition. Thank you. Thank you. Because this crosses party lines. It crosses, as a matter of fact, it crosses all the lines. To actually be asked by the President of the United States to back off and not help these women, that's when MAGA died. That's when the entire thing shattered for me. So I kept my name on. Then we spent 8 weeks shut down. Remember that? We spent 8 weeks shut down. By the way, that was to stop the Epstein resolution from getting a House vote. That's what that shutdown was about. Finally, they reopened the government, and a brand new Democrat member of Congress was sworn in, and we got the 218th signature, released the resolution, passed it overwhelmingly, which was hilarious to me, watching all these Republicans, oh yeah, all of a sudden I'm voting to release the Epstein files, what a pathetic joke. Weak men, oh my gosh, they're so weak. So they vote to pass it. It flies through the Senate, of course, because no one wants to lose their reelection on voting no. And then President Trump's hand was forced to sign it. He didn't sign that because he supported it. He was forced. And so we released the Epstein files. And then I got a Truth Social dropped on my head like a nuclear bomb, where the president called me a traitor. And I really thought about it. I said, he's not talking about what we think of the definition of traitor. He's saying I was a traitor to him. To him. And that's why I was a traitor to him. And that's why he was going to support a primary against me, just like he's doing to Thomas Massie, which is horrific. But here's what happened after that. Not a single Republican defended me. Not one that I served with. But then guess what happened? I started getting death threats. And it was about me being called a traitor. It was, you're a traitor. You deserve to die. You're a traitor. We're going to kill you. You're a traitor. But it was the one that came in, and they kept coming on my son, my youngest, my baby boy. We're going to snuff out his life. We're going to put a bullet in his head. Marjorie Taylor Greene. So I sent those to the president, texted him directly. I also sent them to Susie Wiles and James Blair. And I also sent them to the Vice President, J.D. Vance, Kash Patel. I sent them to all these people. I got no response from Susie Wiles. None. And she's a mother and a grandmother and a woman. I got no response from James Blair because he only cares about making money on campaigns. I did hear from Kash Patel. He said on it, but I haven't heard from him since. I don't know what he's on. And then I heard back from Donald Trump. And I've saved these text messages. I'd probably get put in jail if I released them publicly, but I saved them. Where Donald Trump proceeded to tell me that it was my fault and that I deserve it. If my son gets killed, I deserve it because I was a traitor to him. That is our President of the United States. That's the man that says MAGA is whatever he wants it to be. That's the man that, think about it, so many Americans turn to because they were failed by the Democrat Party and failed by the Republican Party. That's the man that we elected to change everything. Well, he certainly changed everything for me. And I'll tell you, not only was it Donald Trump that changed everything for me, it was serving in Congress in the Republican Party that changed everything for me. It was seeing on the inside what a bunch of liars they all are. Not just Republicans, but Democrats too. They have no intention of doing the things that they promise you on the campaign trail. None. Right now, we have a Republican president, a Republican House, and a Republican Senate. They have the power to do everything they want to do right now. And they refuse to do it. Do you want to know why? They're bought and paid for. They are bought and paid for. They don't work for you. They work for the giant industries that fund their campaigns. They work for the special interest groups that give them fundraisers. They work for the lobbyists that make best friends with them because many members of Congress are lonely in Washington. They're easy to make friends with. They're away from their homes. They're away from their families. They're away from everything that made them who they are. They're taken to Washington, D.C., which is an international city. It's like a foreign country. Washington, D.C. is a foreign country. It's run by a foreign country. It is. It's run by the secular government of Israel and some other people and some other things. But it is. And that's where they're taken. And so they're so easily taken advantage of. And one member of Congress can fund their entire campaign for their next reelection cycle in just a few fundraisers in Washington, D.C. It happens all the time. So when your member of Congress or your senator comes back home and they're claiming how they're there for you and representing you. Most of them are not. They're not. They're representing the people that they see in Washington, D.C., and they don't see you there. The American people are the ones that have the control and the power to change everything. Now, what does it look like in the future? It's probably going to look a lot different than it has in the past. I think within the next 10 years, we will watch both parties basically just be dismantled. We will, because people are being failed by both parties. What's happened now is we're looking in the future elections where I think a Democrat president will have an easy time selling Medicare for all to young Americans. Over 26 million Americans don't have health insurance. 26 million, but who can afford it? When you have the average policy is $1,500 a month if you're a family of 4, and then you're looking at your deductible being about $7,000, health insurance is completely unaffordable. We have a crisis sitting wide open for any Democrat president to come in and easily get elected on Medicare or health care for all. Easily. Think about a Gavin Newsom or another president, Democrat president, could campaign right now, and here's what they could say, and people would vote for it so fast. They could say, I'm not going to represent the swamp. I'm going to represent you, the American people. I refuse to take any PAC money. I refuse to be supported by the military-industrial complex, Big Pharma, and all of them. But I'm going to bring you health care for all. All I need is 10 million people to donate to me $100. That's $1 billion. Now, when you look at the math and there's over 26 million people that don't have health insurance, do you think it's going to be kind of hard to find 10 million people to give $100 to that? That's what we're looking at. We're looking at the potential of full socialism coming in and easily taking over. Do you want to know why? Republicans have completely failed on the domestic agenda, and they have failed to do anything about it. Now, the solution for that is medical freedom. The solution for that is free trade in the medical industries. The solution for that is to deregulate. The solution for that is to reduce the size of the federal government and control and empower the states and state rights. I really do believe in the future you're not going to be able to tell Gen Z or even me or most millennials, you're not going to be able to tell them, oh, you got to support this war or we are going to get bombed by a nuclear bomb. Because most people are going, I really don't care. I can't afford life right now. That's where we are. And that's what we're looking at. MAGA is dead. We're moving past Donald Trump. And the quicker we move past him, the faster we get to the whiteboard, the faster we build the solutions, the quicker we're ahead of everybody else on the way to saving the country. Thank you so much for having me today. God bless you. Thank you, Dr. Paul.